Hello, welcome to Oh the Horror, where we all go a little mad sometimes. I'm Jack Ellis,
And I'm Matt Ellis.
and today we both want to wish you all a very happy new year, and we apologize for last week's lack of upload. We've had some complications in life that have made us get a little behind on this stuff, but we're here now, and we were originally going to be covering the film New Year's Evil in the spirit of New Year's, but they somehow took it off all streaming platforms. So, of course they did. So to get in front of our backlog of movies that came out in late 2022 that we did not cover, today we will be discussing Smile, the psychological horror film. This is a film that I think needs no introduction. This was on many people's best horror films of 2022 list. And 2022 seems to be the year of the small horror film where people were going to see and liking more movies like, Smile, Barbarian, Terrifier 2, Spies, Bodies, as opposed to things like Scream and Halloween Ends, horror juggernauts. Let's just go ahead and start talking about Smile. It begins with Rose, a clinical psychiatrist, treating a patient who's actually a doctoral candidate named Laura Weaver. Laura is there because since she saw her professor die of suicide, she has been extremely paranoid, and she has been haunted by the same demon that killed her instructor. She states that a being has just been smiling at her and telling her her days are numbered. Laura breaks down as Rose calls for help. Laura stands still for a few seconds while grinning at Rose, and she slits her throat with a piece of glass from a vase that she broke. I don't know if I said this before, but my first introduction to this film was when we were going to see The Black Phone, which is our first episode, and we saw a trailer for this movie. And somebody said out loud exactly what I was thinking. This movie has the potential to be either really scary or really stupid. And this scene was the scene that was all over the trailers. And so, this scene to me is actually very unnerving. The way she just stands there and smiles, and the actress who plays Laura Weaver is great because of just how terrified she seems. And it's at this part of the movie where we see how great the cinematography is in this film, on like how the film manages its drone shots and different cinematography like that. And I actually really enjoyed this first little scene. How about you?
I really liked the first scene too. I thought it really set a good tone for what the rest of the movie was gonna be like. It didn't really come out and describe everything that was going on. It just sort of let you see what all was happening, let you infer it from context. And yeah, I agree. The actress who played Laura Weaver really did do a great job. I mean, it is kind of an easy, thing to do. It is easy. Pretty much anybody can look creepy when they're just standing there and smiling. But still, she was really able to do this whole thing well.
Yeah, and eventually Rose has to talk with the police about what happened, and the police rule it a suicide, thinking that Laura was just insane. And after that, Rose is attacked by another psych patient named Carl, and he smiles at her and repeats over and over, "You are going to die." And then he attacks her, but then he is restrained when she sees that he has actually been sleeping the whole time. This is the scene where the smiling part gets a little hokey for me. I do, I think that him just his smile looks a little off, and him just saying over and over, "You're going to die." It's just hey, look at how creepy I am, sort of thing. And yeah, I didn't particularly like this scene, but if you were freaked out by it, uh, all more power to you. But it just wasn't for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought that scene didn't really go over well. Like him just, it really did come off as kind of cheesy to me. But overall, I don't really have any complaints about this part. I thought it was pretty funny how like the cops, when they were talking to Rose about it, and she described how exactly Laura died, and the one cop just said, "Yeah, she sounds pretty batshit crazy to me," and I'm just like, "Yeah, that's pretty unprofessional."
Yeah. And one of the detectives was actually Rose's ex, Joel, and she is actually engaged to someone named Trevor.
One thing I forgot to mention though a second ago is that it's like, that's one thing that really is gonna cause this, what happened, to fly under the radar as far as being a demonic possession. It's like, someone, a psych patient killing themselves like in the ward. It's like, of course that's, no matter how odd, even for a crazy person they acted, it's still just gonna be thought of as a crazy person killing themselves. So
Yeah, and so as a result of this incident, Rose is asked to take the week off, and when she gets back home, she tells her fiance what's going on, and he is sympathetic but doesn't really believe her about the whole demon thing. She takes advantage of having the week off by going to her nephew's birthday party, which she had discussed at dinner with her sister that she could not go because she had work, but now she can go. So the party goes south when the nephew opens his gift from her, which is replaced with Rose's dead cat. A combo of this and seeing another party attendant giving her a demonic smirk made her freak out and fall through the coffee table, which is made of glass. She was too distraught to see where she was going. This scene I don't particularly like because I don't really like movies where somebody gets gaslit for 2 hours. It was one of the reasons I didn't like Don't Worry, Darling, or something of that nature. And this one part, once you know that she buys a gift for her nephew, and once you know that the cat is missing, you can see what goes on from like a mile away. And the smiling party goer, sort of is on the border of silly and scary, but I think she does a fine job. And yeah, I think the scene is fine, but not anything special. And also, when she goes out to her car, she sees her sister smiling at her, and that scene is kind of stupid to me. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about it, which is pretty annoying. It was sort of annoying to me, but yeah. What did you think of this scene?
Well, I thought, man, that has to have been the most exciting kid's birthday party in history. Like, there's no doubt about that. And it's like, wow, a kid actually getting a dead cat for his birthday, and it's like, wow. And I thought I was terrible at giving gifts. It's just like, you gave him a dead cat, and it's like, well, the cat's dead. I don't want it anymore. Or like, well, the train store was out of the kind of train you like, so I figured this would be close enough. But yeah, I thought that yeah, this scene was pretty sad because, like, like you said, everybody was gonna think she was crazy. She just had no defense whatsoever for her sanity at this point. And what I thought really made it sad was like, we saw earlier that Rose and Trevor were actually out having dinner with her sister Holly, whose nephew's party that all happened at, and her sister's husband. So I mean, what kind of really just made this sad to see was that Rose, it looks like, had a pretty nice life before all this happened. Like she had a steady career, she had a fiance, she was living in a nice house, she was spending time with her family. It all kind of seemed like she had everything going for her, but then this happens, so it's like, but that's all I really have to say.
Yeah, that's another sad thing too. Is just pretty much everybody in this curse was not only innocent but did have something to live for. None of them were expressly suicidal beforehand, and that's another thing that makes this not only so creepy but so saddening. And I know it seems like I'm dunking on the movie so far, but we're talking scenes on the individual. And also, granted, I do watch a lot of movies, and so I can probably see different plot points coming. So don't take that as something against the movie itself. Also, this may be a day late and a dollar short, but spoilers. Okay. Anyway, so she continues to try to piece together what exactly is happening. But also she visits her own therapist, and the therapist. No, that's not the right scene. And then she goes to the widow of the man Laura saw kill himself, which then caused Laura to kill herself. And then you know what happened. Rose, so the widow actually tells her that the husband also saw someone killed himself right in front of him, and she shows Rose the art studio that's full of smiling faces in drawings. And the sort of investigative part of this movie is interesting as far as figuring out what goes on the curse. But again, you can probably think that the curse is passed on to people through watching somebody else commit suicide. So her going to the house and saying, oh yeah, he saw someone kill himself or kill themselves. I mean, that's something that would be expected, so it's not like a huge break in the case, I guess you'd call it. But yeah, the scene full of smiling faces is it's actually pretty creepy just to see how insane this man had been driven.
He looked insanely happy.
Yeah. But, yeah, what do you have to say about this part?
I did enjoy the fact that there was a big investigative part to it. Like, she's not just the damsel in distress. She's actually going after this and jumping into it to figure out what she can do about it, and even goes and tries to trace it back to its roots, because at this point, there's no doubt from her perspective that something is going on, something beyond just mental illness. And so I kind of, which, I mean, it's so opposite to what you usually see. I mean, I know people usually try to find ways out of being killed in movies like this, but they usually don't even know where to start. But she kind of I guess with her being a physician, she kind of knew she knows how to like experiment and look for answers. So I did like this part.
Um, so then her next step is to go to her ex, Detective Joel, like we talked about, who is able to show her police footage of similar events, and it goes all the way down through the chain of people killing themselves or seeing somebody get killed and then killing themselves. And it goes back years. Um, I don't remember how many people they said was in the chain, but the guy says nobody ever lasted more than a week. And for this to last even 2 years, this cycle would have happened 104 times. Um, so I don't know, like, I don't know how other people hadn't caught on to this yet.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the only people like you only would have like a week to tell. I mean, that's actually a bad point. What I'm trying to say is like the thing is nobody would believe anybody who told them that this was going on. So
yeah, that's I forgot about that, but yeah, just to think of how far this goes back is pretty scary. And he believes her, so they go to see the only survivor of these demonic attacks, who is currently in prison. Robert Talley explains that he escaped death by killing another person rather than himself. This apparently worked because this demon wants trauma. He does not care who dies as long as someone does. When Rose drives back home after this, her fiance and Madeline are there to try to talk to her, but the demon gets a hold of Madeline and causes Rose to leave abruptly. Don't make any assumptions out of this. This is just my opinion. I found it a little weird that the only person who we know in this curse cycle to be black was the only person who killed somebody and went to prison to get out of it instead of killing themselves. That part made me a little uncomfortable, but I'm not saying anything about the filmmakers or whoever casted it. I think the person who played the prisoner, Robert Talley, did a really fantastic job. It's just that plot point. I don't even know what I'm saying with this, but it was just something I thought should be pointed out. But the idea of somebody going to prison by killing someone else instead of themselves is a great idea, and it sort of expands the mythos of this film. And yeah, I do really like that plot point, because not only is it a cool plot point, but it also says a lot about the world. And yeah, so when she drives back home and her fiance and her therapist are waiting there, I don't really like the fiance character in this. And I don't really know if we're even supposed to, because he's, all good with her when everything is fine, but once things get hard, he's just kind of trying everything to get back to normal, and then eventually I believe that they break up or something, because of how just, how unsympathetic he is. And I think the therapist starting to smile looks creepy. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have much else to say on this. Matt, what do you think?
I gotta say, like you said, that guy Robert Talley was really smart. I mean, he was really instinctive. Like he figured, this thing, it just wants blood, and it wants trauma. Like, so all I really have to do is just give it that. It really doesn't have to necessarily be me. But yeah, that doesn't really stick well with Rose, as she of course is not the killing type. So, um, but yeah, I thought everything. I don't really have any complaints about what we've seen so far. It was good that they had there be at least one survivor, so like we could get, because otherwise I don't see where you really could get much information, since everybody just offs themselves within a week who has this curse. But and like the problem is if this really were to happen, it would get pretty bad before anything was done. Because, like I said, not only would nobody believe you if you told them this kind of stuff happened, but, like, you could actually show them the film footage of it actually happening, and plenty of people still wouldn't believe you. So
Yeah, and the I think the scariest part about this curse is that you know you you lose either way, unless you're like you know really good at murder. Um, but you could either die or someone has to see you kill someone, and in that case, you're gonna spend the rest of your life in jail or an asylum, and that's a scary dichotomy there, and so that's a really interesting part of this.
I think that's even actually like where the message of this thing comes in, is like it's showing how trauma is passed from one person to another.
Yeah,
And as we'll see, like that's actually kind of the root of what makes Rose want to go into the field she does. We'll talk about that later, is her own trauma. But yeah, it's that I mean, this that's I guess that's kind of maybe just like a message to people about. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know where
yeah,
I'm going with this.
yeah. I understand what you're saying. I think the overall meaning of this film is that untreated trauma only begets more trauma.
And then
Um,
you end up either hurting yourself or somebody else as a result of it.
yeah. Those who do not understand history are doomed to repeat it. Um, and yeah, I'm happy you caught that because that's actually a really good point. Um, and yeah, so at this point, Rose is tired of running, so she's just gonna go to her old family home, which is now abandoned. Uh, and she's haunted by her mother, who we find out was mentally ill and killed herself. Um, it is actually the demon who is posing as her mother. And when it starts attacking her, she sets the house on fire and thinks she goes back to Joel's house, where she finds Joel just smiling. But it turns out she was hallucinating and doesn't know it yet. When the actual Joel shows up, she goes into the house, which is actually not burned, and locks it. Rose then gets possessed by the demon, posing as her mother. By the time Joel can break in, it is too late. He sees Rose standing, smiling, and then sets herself on fire. Then the credits roll. This ending will probably be the thing we talk about the most, if not the last part, because the last half of this movie is where things get interesting. Like we were talking about, the main meaning of this film is really hammered home by this part about her mother dying of an overdose. The actual demon itself, when it's not inhabiting anything else. I don't know if you guys have seen the film Barbarian, and spoilers for that movie as well. The monster from this movie and the monster from Barbarian look way too similar for my taste. It just, in my opinion. and you know they're both, when you see it you say, whoa, that's fucked up, and you know it has that sort of look to it, and they both sort of look like the same. I don't know if that was an accident or if it was intentional. That's just what I thought. And so yeah, we get one of those false endings. We think everything is safe, but then the walls come down, and we're right back where we started. And if you're like me, there were two types of people. You either didn't think or you didn't know how the movie would end, or by a certain point, you knew exactly how the movie would end. And I am in the latter category, and I thought that the movie would end with Rose killing herself in front of Joel, and then the curse would be passed on to him, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, I wasn't surprised by the ending, but how it was shot, and kudos to the person who plays Joel for being a great actor. I believe he is the person who was on the YouTube channel The Warp Zone. He does a great job. And yeah, this part is good and it's poignant, and it's very well made, but as far as endings go, it's one of those things in this movie I could see from a mile away. What do you think about the ending?
Yeah, I thought the ending was pretty predictable myself, and also a bit of a letdown, because like, you know, she kind of, you would think that like she would have ended up accomplishing something by the end of it, even if it meant she was gonna go down herself. But it's like, you know, no, she pretty much just dies the way we all think she would. She doesn't really, even though she goes back to her childhood home, she doesn't really overcome anything. She just dies an undignified death by the demon.
Yeah, that's the thing that I didn't get either. Like, why did she even go back to her childhood house if this was how the movie was gonna end? Like, that seemed a little pointless to me. And also, this movie about taking down a curse is less, you know, or taking down a monster, this or that. It's less, you know, it's less something like what we were talking about, like Halloween Ends, where they kill it at the end, and more akin to 1984, where the main character just succumbs to it because they realize that they can never actually defeat it. And so this movie lacks resolution, and I suppose that's part of its creepiness. But for me, at least, if the entire point of the movie was that she was just gonna succumb to this curse, then what was even the point? She's just another victim of it. There's at least 104 people. What was gonna make her so special that we spent 2 hours watching it?
And I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
And I mean, it's like, I was just gonna say, yeah, it would have been predictable that she, you know, that she slay the demon or something like that, but it would have been the good kind of predictable, if that makes any sense. Like the kind of thing you want to see from a movie.
Yeah, like it's a movie that like you can at least be happy even if you knew what was coming. But there's a certain point in the movie where you're just sort of thinking to yourself, shit, I know how this is gonna end. And yeah, I'm not particularly displeased with the ending because it is still really creepy. But brass tacks, when you think about it for a little while, like we have, and deconstruct it, it's not really anything special. This movie is very well made, but as far as its rank as a movie, people were up and down Twitter, YouTube, calling this the best horror movie of 2022. And again, like, I don't want to discredit anybody's opinion, but like we've been talking about, we have Barbarian, Terrifier 2, Bodies, 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 X, Pearl, Halloween Ends, Bones and All. So many great movies. And this is number one on so many people's. It's great as like a Friday night popcorn horror movie that kids can go watch with their girlfriend and get scared. But the greatest horror movie of 2022, it's a good movie, maybe better than most, but when you do what we're doing here, and you really look at every individual part of this movie, and you deconstruct it, and you look at it with a fine-tooth comb, best horror movie of 2022. I don't buy it. In that spirit, maybe we could each say what our favorite horror movie of 2022 was. What was yours?
I would say mine was probably. I'd say mine was Halloween Ends.
I really liked Halloween Ends too. Scream at the beginning of the year was good.
Oh yeah, Scream was good too.
And Barbarian, but Smile might make my top 5 for 2022, but it certainly will not be number one. What are your thoughts on the movie as a whole? Sorry.
The movie as a whole was pretty good. The idea was interesting. I mean, it was kind of, the plot line was kind of predictable, but I mean, I overall thought it was worth watching. Like, if you're a horror fan, I'd say go see it.
Well, anyway, I will probably give this movie let's say an 8 out of 10. It's flawed, but worth the watch.
I'd give it an 8 out of 10 too.
Well, anyway, Happy New Year to everyone. I am Jack Ellis.
And I am Matt Ellis.
And this has been Oh the Horror. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.